Good morning, everyone. We are here for a hearing of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. It is Tuesday, March 14th, 9:30 a.m. in Conference Room 325. And first on the agenda today, we have Senate Bill 504, Senate Draft 1, relating to environmental protection. And this prohibits additional products containing PFAS in addition to our law that we passed last year. And first up to testify is Department of Health on Zoom, I think. Department of Health? All right, we'll come back. We have Board of Water Supply.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. The Board of Water Supply strongly supports Senate Bill 504 SD1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the Makakilo Kapolei Neighborhood Board in support. County of Hawaii Department of Environmental Management in support. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Good morning, Chair Lowe and Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and the Climate Protectors Hawaii. PFAS, or forever chemicals, once they arrive, they will never leave. And so I think this legislation is very important, and we are in strong support of it. We need to keep these damaging chemicals out of our state and out of our products. So thank you for proposing this bill. Available for questions.
Thank you. And then Life of the Land in support. Friends of Haunama Bay in support. Not present. We have Personal Care Product Council in opposition. Consumer Brands Association in opposition. Retail Merchants on Zoom. Not present. Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support. American Chemistry Council in opposition. Maui Chamber of Commerce providing comments. We have Sierra Club of Hawaii in support, and then testimonies from 7 additional individuals in support and 1 in opposition. We'll go back to Department of Health. Are you there on Zoom? All right, they had testimony in support. Is there anyone else here to testify that we missed? If not, members, any questions? No. All right, we will move on.
I have testimony, please, for
Okay.
SB 504.
Okay, please state your name and your position and go ahead.
All right, my name is Regina Peterson. Aloha kako. I fully support this bill. I and many others have not heard of this dangerous forever chemicals until the unfortunate spill at Kapukaki or Red Hill. And I started to research about it and found that there are many products that contain this deadly forever chemical. And it made me want to toss everything I own away that has it. Why would I want my ohana to continue using these products and subject us even more to this cancerous possibility? As a mother, how could I live with that? And then I thought, if I toss it, it will be in our aina. And then I thought, holy crap, how many people are buying all these products and when done, just tossing it away? Where does it go? In our frickin' aina, in our landfill. Where? In my onehanau, waianai. Why and who allowed these products to be brought here to our aina? Those that probably came before you, but I ask, what are you gonna do now? If you do not support this bill moving forward, you are okay with being a part of hurting our future generations. You are okay with being a part of hurting our aina that we all need to remember, which feeds us. Are you okay with that? That's my question to you. Is that the kind of legacy you want to leave behind for your future generations who may not live long enough to see theirs? I understand that there are some people that would oppose this bill for reasons of financial loss for these businesses To me, that's just another Western way to think about ya oi iho, yourself, and not kako, all of us, now and the future. All I can do is pule for those that oppose this bill for financial purposes. Ho'a ka'iini no ke ala ho. Find that desire to seek paths of better living for all of us. Don't delay. Put this in play now. 2050 is way too long. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? All right, if not, we will move on. Next bill on the agenda is Senate Bill 445, Senate Draft 1, relating to pollution abatement. And this increases civil penalties for various pollution laws. And first up to testify is Department of Health on Zoom.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Darrell Lum. I'm with the Department of Health Clean Water Branch. The Department of Health stands on our written testimony in strong support, and I will be available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in support.
Thank you, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. This little bill is close to my heart because I used to serve as the Deputy Attorney General for Darrell Lum and others at the Department of Health Clean Water Branch. In order to enforce, we need adequate penalties. Over the last 25 years, the size of the penalty has shrunk with inflation, and this bill would would bring it up to the level which is now at EPA, where they have grown with inflation. $59,973 is an appropriate penalty. It also provides for an additional health specialist at the Department of Health, which is also needed. So Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition is in strong support of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, and 4 additional individuals in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Department of Health, a question for you. For the appropriation amount, do you have what the suggested amount would be for that appropriation, the blank appropriation?
I think for this one, it was 1 full-time position.
And what would that dollar amount be for the bill?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, can you let us know? Get back to the
Sure,
committee?
I'll do that.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, members? Great. If not, next on the agenda is Senate Bill 376 relating to the environment. This prohibits seabed mining in state waters. And first up is Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support. Neil Nathan in support. We have Doug McCauley from the Benioff Ocean Science Laboratory in support. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. Seabed mining proposes too high an environmental risk for our ocean. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition is very concerned about the impacts that seabed mining would have. We would note that California, Oregon, and Washington have all passed similar legislation. We urge the passage of this bill, and we are in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support. Kauai Women's Caucus in support. Oceanic Preservation Society in support. Te Ipu Karea Society in support. Friends of Hanauma Bay in support. Diva Amon from the Benioff Ocean Science Laboratory in support. Sustainable Ocean Alliance in support. Animal Welfare Institute and For the Fishes. Inga Gibson indicated testifying in person but not present in support. And then we have 13 additional testimonies from individuals, all in support. Anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? All right. Me either. We will move on then. And the next bill on the agenda is Senate Bill 973 relating to transportation. This requires rental vehicle companies using state facilities to pay or reimburse the state to install new or utilize existing EV charging infrastructure at public facilities, establishes a task force to implement EV charging to support 100% electric vehicle rental car fleets by 2035. And first up on this bill is the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, the Energy Office stands on our testimony and support.
Thank you. And Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Scott Glenn, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We submitted testimony in support. We support the intent of the bill. We did make a recommendation or request for amendment. We support the work of the task force as proposed. However, we don't think the Office of Planning is the best to chair it. We believe a subject matter expert such as DOT might be a better agency to lead the task force, but we're certainly willing to be a member of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Avis Budget Group with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Member Lori Lum on behalf of Avis Budget Group. We are also in support of the intent of this measure, but we'd like to ask for your consideration of some amendments which are outlined in our testimony. In particular, right now the bill has a representative from the rental car industry, and we feel that 3 representatives would be more appropriate to more appropriate representation of the industry. Also on amend Section 1 on page 2 to delete Section 2, as we believe the timeline for EV implementation should be addressed by the task force. And I'd also like to note that DOT Director Ed Sniffen has been very proactively engaging with us, which is great. We've already had an initial meeting with him to discuss the EV infrastructure at airports and off airports, and hope that that will continue. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And next is Climate Protectors Hawaii in support, Ulupono Initiative in support.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Micah Munikato here with Ulupono Initiative. We'll just stand on our testimony in support of this measure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And then Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party in support, Enterprise Holdings, Sanhai.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Matt Sujimura on behalf of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We'll stand on our written comments, but I do just want to point out one of the amendments that we are requesting is to amend Section 1, which is the section which would set a date for, basically this is a January 2028 date. Thereafter, it would be upon the rental car industry to pay or reimburse for any usage or construction or any usage of any EV charging infrastructure. We do believe that that should be left to the task force to determine what is the appropriate date, since the task force is meant to and tasked with identifying what the best implementation cadence and strategy should be. We feel like it would be up to them, or it would be in the best purview to allow them to determine any dates moving forward. But happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And then Hawaiian Electric in support. Hi.
Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee, Shannon Olivado on behalf of Hawaiian Electric. We did submit comments, but one request we had made was to be included as part of the task force. We think we would bring a valid voice to the discussion, and we appreciate you hearing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have additional individual testimonies, 4 in support and 2 in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? I guess maybe for the Avis Budget Group, Lori.
Yes.
I guess just the request to go from 1 to 3 representatives from the rental car industry and from 1 to 3 representatives from the hotel industry. I mean, what's the reasoning for 3 of each?
I think it's just better representation. I know that already there's two of the 3 major rental cars in this room, and both of us would like to participate on the task force. So that's the reason for the number. And then for the hotel industry, same reasoning. We do have and work with our hotel partners. So,
Okay, I guess the thing is with a relatively small number of members on the task force, it would kind of sway the balance quite a bit. I was wondering if you felt like they were there was different people representing different perspectives specifically, or it's more just having more representation?
Yeah, I think from the hotel industry, definitely, you might get some different perspectives. You know, we deal with some like the Hyatt Poipu who have charging stations on property, others that we're working with that don't currently, but we're working with them to get chargers installed. So they are coming from a different place where they are currently today and where we want them in the future.
Got it. And then the suggested amendment, and I think it was the same request from Sanhai, was to
The amendment of-
basically remove the date. Can you go just
It was
run through that
section
with me?
2. It was a date referred to, specific date in section 2. And we felt that part of the task force would be to put that timeline together.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? All right. If not, we will move on to find my hearing notice. What was that? Ah, here we go. Senate Bill 1154 relating to energy. This is the intergovernmental wheeling bill. And first up, we have DCCA Consumer Advocate.
Aloha and good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Dean Nishino with the Division of Consumer Advocacy in the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on SB 1154, but available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Public Utilities Commission.
Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee, Steve Mariani from the Commission. We stand on our written testimony, but available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Life of the Land in opposition.
Aloha, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. We oppose the bill on a few different reasons. First, we note that the Maui Community College or Maui colleges have never been at the Public Utilities Commission, and maybe they don't understand the process, but the University of Hawaii has an open proceeding at the Public Utilities Commission dealing with a form of wheeling. So perhaps the college and the university should get together and talk it over. Second, we notice that hybrid microgrids are a form of wheeling. So wheeling is already contemplated by the PUC. And third, well, there is a third point, but I'll settle for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative in support.
And we'll send in our testimony supporting intent. Thank you.
Thank you. And then IBEW, Kika.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Kika Bukowski on behalf of Local 1260 IBEW, and we stand on our written comments and request consideration for our clarifying amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Hawaiian Electric in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. James Abraham on behalf of Hawaiian Electric testifying in opposition to Senate Bill 1154. While we do appreciate when the legislators come up with creative solutions for how we can get more renewable energy onto the grid, we do have strong concerns with this wheeling scheme that's being proposed by this bill. For one, we have strong equity concerns that this proposal is aimed at benefiting the largest customers on the grid and may have negative impacts on smaller customers in the long run. I do want to note that the PUC has recently opened an energy equity proceeding where it's looking at these types of subsidization and other related issues. So we'd like to respectfully request that the committee defer this bill and allow the PUC and interested stakeholders to continue their progress on wheeling types of programs that have been implemented or have been proposed. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. And is it Blue Planet Foundation?
Chair, we'll stand on our written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have additional testimony from one individual in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions. All right, I have questions. Maybe I'll start with the PUC or, yeah, TCCA. I think wheeling has been, there was a docket specifically on wheeling some time ago, and now it's being currently addressed in some form or another in various dockets. But what's the timeline on those coming to any kind of decision?
I think we'd have to get back to you on the timeline of those. If you're referring to the green tariff as well as the microgrid tariff dockets that were previously referenced. On this bill, I think we're open to opening a docket to visit the issues that have been addressed in those other dockets, but I think there'd be a great deal of consideration we'd have to make for the issues about equity and ratepayer impacts. So, but we can get back to you on the timeline for those other dockets.
And what do you see as the impact? I mean, I know the green tariff docket is more specific to University of Hawaii, I think, but this bill would be not necessarily specific to UH, but you know, could include state agencies sort of sharing. I mean, it would, I think the idea that it's a benefit potentially to taxpayers might offset some of the equity concerns.
Yes, I think those are definitely some of the issues that have been raised, and that would need sort of a more thorough analysis with Hawaiian Electric and with the different stakeholders involved to measure out, I suppose, the impacts that you've raised.
And then in terms of encouraging, you know, renewable energy systems to be added to state facilities, for example, if wheeling, intergovernmental wheeling, like between state agencies was allowed for certain departments like Department of Education that has a sort of specific use profile. Sometimes they're on spring break and out of school, et cetera. So I think it would give them an added incentive to kind of take advantage of all that roof space and be, I would think, a general benefit by just bringing down electric bills for taxpayers.
Certainly, and I think part of that would also get quantified through the docket and through some of the analyses that Hawaiian Electric would likely have to do to see the impacts to the system, but measure it against, I guess, the benefits that could be to ratepayers as well. We would just want to consider those for the docket.
Do you think that's adequately covered in the green tariff docket?
We would have to get back to you kind of on the breadth of the green tariff docket. I can't speak to that at this moment. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks. Any other questions, members? All right, we will move on to Senate Bill 459 relating to the hydrogen fueling system subaccount. So this is appropriating funds that were already set aside. So first up, Public Utilities Commission.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Norman, here on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission. We stand on our written testimony and am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Servco Pacific in support, Alliance for Automotive Innovation in support, and we have one individual in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? I guess quickly for a PUC. I'm just wondering, for this program, we've had this conversation separately also, but for this program and the electric vehicle charging system rebates, both of those have like a sub-account under the PUC special fund into which 3 cents a barrel tax is deposited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a budget request for a ceiling increase for those funds to be able to be expended more at will. But I guess I'm concerned because when I pull up the special fund reports, it's not clear to me that, you know, all of that revenue that's being deposited is being accounted for. And because it's really all going into one account, all the funds are commingled, there's really no, besides, having someone kind of paying close attention to it, I think just a little concerned about whether that's the best structure for this to take. Do you think it would be better to just separately create a separate special fund for each program?
Well, I would definitely want to consult with our fiscal team to understand that part of it more clearly, but it's my understanding that there is, like the established sub-accounts, so it is easy to both track revenue and expenditures from those direct accounts. But if your question is regarding whether it makes more sense to establish specific special funds for those, I would have to get back to you on our thoughts on that, but I'm sure our fiscal team would have a better understanding if that would help in terms of tracking.
I think there was, sorry, I'm pulling this up, but I think under like HRS 3747, reporting of non-general fund information, that it might be good to take a look at that and make sure everything's being followed in terms of clear reporting, because there's that annually report to the legislature for each non-general fund account. And yeah, it's like the sub-account. I would think the sub-account is included separately under that, but it's not really explicit.
Okay.
And therefore, it's been hard to kind of dig up the information, how much money has been set aside for it, and is it being expended for those purposes?
Okay,
or saved,
we can certainly, help. We want to ensure that you all are aware of both incoming and outgoing for these two programs, so.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
We can look into
you.
that. Thank you so much, Chair.
Any other questions, members? All right. Next up, we have Senate Bill 839 relating to renewable energy. So this is the kind of interconnection bill and looking at establishing the Hawaii Electricity Reliability Administrator and a surcharge for a special fund to fund that. And we will start with DCCA, Consumer Advocate, with comments.
Aloha and good morning again. Dean Yoshino with the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on our written testimony offering comments, but available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Public Utilities Commission.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Stephen Mariani from the Commission. We stand on our written testimony, but available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The Citizens Caucus with comments, Life of the Land.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. We oppose the bill. The Public Utilities Commission, the Consumer Advocate, HECO, and others have been working to decrease the time it takes for interconnection. We feel the process is moving forward, and this is no time to put something in the middle of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative with comments, Hawaii Clean Power Alliance in support, Hawaii Solar Energy Association with comments, Hawaiian Electric in person.
Good morning, Chair Loa and Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Greg Shimokawa for Hawaiian Electric. We recognize it's in everyone's interest to move as quickly as we can to get more renewable energy decarbonization as quickly as possible, and to do that, we're looking at shortening our interconnection process. But I think, as been said in other testimony, we feel like this bill is unnecessary at this time, as there are a number of efforts going on in parallel, including the Act 201 report and efforts there, performance-based regulation, and efforts from the company and the independent engineer itself. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. We're available for questions.
Thank you. And then BIA Hawaii in opposition and an additional individual in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Public Utilities Commission. Can you talk about how this is being addressed in the PBR docket, and whether you think that what the timing is, or how successful you think that effort has been to sort of be able to hold the utility accountable for any delays?
Sure thing. So just this past year, in 2022, there was a new performance incentive metric that was adopted that would apply to future procurements. So that will address the upcoming Stage 3 procurement, wherein Hawaiian Electric will be incentivized through penalties as well as awards for the timeliness of their completion of interconnection studies. So we believe this will definitely improve the process, as it puts kind of Hawaiian Electric's responsibilities squarely in a timeline that's set and that's been established through a working group discussion, an assessment of that timeline, and yeah, we believe that this will improve processes in the future.
What kind of penalties are there?
I believe it's based on the size of the project, so kind of a portion to the amount of renewables that would come onto the grid, but it's a fixed per megawatt hour penalty or award based on the number of months that it takes to complete those studies. I believe the target timeline is between 10 to 12 months to complete those studies. So if it's faster than 10 months, they would receive awards. And if the study takes longer than 12 months to complete, they would be incurring penalties on a monthly basis.
Would you know what the amount of penalty is? I mean,
it's $20 per megawatt hour. So
if it was a 30 megawatt project.
Right. So that would be in the, I think, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'd have to do the quick math in my head. But a 30 megawatt project with an annual estimate of, well, taking a 100,000 megawatt hour project, you would get to a $2 million penalty per month that they're either in advance of that timeline or delaying in that timeline.
And they couldn't recover that through rates or anything?
Nope, that's correct.
Okay. In the purpose clause of this bill, it talks about the tracked cost over time for delays. It says in 2022, the Public Utilities Commission testified it had set up a tracker accounts to quantify and monitor the cost of project delays. How far back does that go, the tracker?
We'd have to check on that. That gets filed in our docket 2021-0024, our interconnection docket. I believe that started in early 2021 when that docket was started up. So we should have close to 2 years of delay cost tracked.
And then it says the track cost totaled over 10 million across several projects. And so I guess is that accounting for the cost of delay to ratepayers?
That would be. I believe it takes the difference of the avoided cost, the effective rate for power procurement against the cost savings that would have been realized had those projects been brought online on time.
So when projects were delayed in the past and not brought online in time, and then, we had the oil price spike that led to higher rates, all that cost of delay was borne by ratepayers?
Correct, yes.
Is there any way to go back in time and have penalties? Is there a way to use that tracker information to look at if there should be penalties for past delays? Or if there's a way for ratepayers to be able to, have some kind of reimbursement, or, they basically completely bore the cost of that?
So at the outset, there was discussion over what would be done with those tracked costs. At the time, there was no sort of incentive being associated with it, but the point of collecting that data over such a long time period would be to have it on record so that it could be sort of quantified and then assessed at a later time. So that is still something that we could do with the data that's available to us.
So you could open an investigation into that subject?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Is there any interest in doing that at the PUC, or do you think that's something we should put in this bill?
I think we'd have to discuss. That would be something we would be open to considering since we have the data available to us. So we'd be willing to consider that proposal. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? All right. If not, we will move on to Senate Bill 691 relating to efficiency standards. So this is adding to our state level appliance efficiency standards. First up to testify is Hawaii State Energy Office on Zoom. Oh, here's Maria. Thank you. And then Board of Water Supply.
Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committee. My name is Kathy Mitchell of the Board of Water Supply, and we stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. Climate Protectors Hawaii in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Appliance efficiency standards just make sense. They save carbon emissions and they save money. And we ought to go forward with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative in support. Hawaii Energy in support. Home Ventilating Institute on Zoom.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, and committee members. My name is Elisa Schroyer, and I'm here on behalf of the Home Ventilating Institute, or HVI. HVI is an ISO compliant certification body and a trade association representing over 100 manufacturers of residential ventilating fans worldwide. HVI is also the originator of the airflow test procedure, which this bill applies to residential ventilating fans. Last month, your committee heard testimony on the companion bill to this legislation, and at that time, you adopted an amendment to HRS 19688, which listed HVI's Certified Products Directory as a certification and labeling program that can establish compliance with Hawaii's appliance standards. As I understand it, this committee added that amendment because California's modernized appliance efficiency database system, which Hawaii law relies upon to establish certification and labeling requirements for regulated appliances, lists not only residential ventilating fans which comply with Hawaii's new standard, but it also includes those which do not comply. This committee's amendment simplified the process for determining whether a residential ventilating fan complies with Hawaii efficiency standards. Naming HVI's Certified Product Directory as a certification and labeling program under the statute means that you can search a product's model number in HVI's directory, and that directory will provide a clear yes or no with regard to Hawaii standards. We urge the committee to adopt an amendment to HRS 19688, naming HVI's Certified Products Directory a certification and labeling program for residential ventilating fans sold in Hawaii. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then we have the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers also on Zoom.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jacob Cassidy. I am the Director of Government Relations for the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. Our member companies manufacture major portable and floor care appliances. We signed in and are in opposition to this bill. I'll refer you to our written comments. The main reason of opposition is the inclusion of room air cleaners. When this committee heard the House companion bill about a month ago, as was just mentioned, the committee did remove this product from the bill at that time. We think that was the correct decision, and we wish your Senate counterparts had done the same. The federal government and federal regulators are finalizing at this very moment federal standards for these products. States will be preempted, and it's just simply unnecessary to add them. We support the underlying mission of this bill, and we hope you repeat your efforts from earlier this year and amend air cleaners out. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And then the Appliance Standards Awareness Project, also on Zoom.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Brian Fady with the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. We submitted written testimony. I did want to add an additional item. Mainly, I'd like to offer to work with the committee chair and stakeholders on language for two of the products. Electric vehicle supply equipment, also known as EV chargers, and then the water coolers. For the water coolers in the Senate, a change was made to the Energy Star version number that would put Hawaii out of alignment with other states that have adopted the water cooler standard. So I'd be happy to discuss that further. For electric vehicle supply equipment, my organization talked with the Energy Star program recently about this product, and at this time we have an updated recommendation to remove it as a standard at this time. Energy Star is developing an updated version for the EV chargers that would be a better fit for this quickly developing technology. But that updated Energy Star version, it's not yet finalized, and it could still take a couple of months to get finalized. So to simplify things, it's probably best to remove it as a product at this time and perhaps consider it in future years. That was it. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And then Blue Planet Foundation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jody Robinson with Blue Planet Foundation. First, I want to thank the Chair for introducing the House Companion Bill and for this committee for passing that bill, as it was mentioned last month, with some thoughtful amendments. We did submit testimony in support. Happy to work with stakeholders on potential amendments. And I really wanted to emphasize that including the State Energy Office to have authority to do future rulemaking on these appliance standards is a critical component of this bill. Help to address some of the, very technical amendments that are being proposed here on individual products and allow us to move forward quickly in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have testimony from 5 individuals in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? All right, if not, members, any questions? All right, if not, we will move on to Senate Bill 422 relating to the Environmental Advisory Council. This is a housekeeping bill that just deletes a reference to a section that was repealed in prior years. And we have the Environmental Advisory Council on Zoom to testify.
Mahalo. Aloha Chair Lowen, Vice Chair and members of the committee. Onaunathon on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Council. We stand on our written testimony and support, and thank you for hearing this measure.
Thank you. And then Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Good morning, Chair. We stand on our testimony and support.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? All right, if not, we are moving on to the last bill on this agenda, Senate Bill 419 relating to carbon sequestration. This is an appropriation bill for the Hawaii Carbon Smart Land Management Assistance Pilot Program that was established last year. And first up, we have Department of Land and Natural Resources in support. Hawaii Department of Agriculture present. Thank you. The Hawaii Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission.
Aloha Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, member of the committee. Leah Laramie with the Hawaii State Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission. I apologize for the late submission of testimony. We stand in strong support of this bill. Our natural and working lands are going to be critical in our meeting our state climate goals, as well as our food and water security goals as well. Also, just to share with you folks that this program is working in coordination with some efforts with the university, who has just awarded $40 million to do similar programs, but this is looking specifically at these smaller farms that can't easily access federal funds and have challenges applying for those funds. So it's really, working together with these programs to make sure that we're addressing the needs of all of our land managers. Mahalo.
Thank you. And the Hawaii Forest Industry Association in support, Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and the Climate Protectors Hawaii. We have goals, targets for 2045 of reaching carbon negativity. We talk a lot about reducing emissions from fossil fuels and other power sources. We talk less about sequestration, which is the other half of the equation, and I want to emphasize how important that is. We have to bring down carbon from the atmosphere into the earth in order to reach those goals. Forest preservation and regenerative agriculture are two of the ways that we can do that. And this bill would provide some carbon smart practices that would help on the sequestration side. So Climate Protectors Hawaii and Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition are in strong support and urge you to pass the bill. We ask the committee to restore the $1 million appropriation that was contained in the original bill and the companion bill, House Bill 188. If it's not this committee, at least subsequent committees, we ask for that appropriation. Thank you very much. Available for questions.
Thank you. And Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, Hawaii Farm Bureau in support, and Citizens Climate Lobby in support, and then 6 additional individuals in support and 1 in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Rep. Ward.
Ted, did you say the blank appropriation was 1 million?
That's my understanding. But that in a previous bill, that was what it was.
And you suggested that be reinserted?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if no further questions, we will recess for decision-making, and I'm thinking in order to give time for other members to get here, we'll probably do decision-making after. We have a joint agenda at 10:30, and then we'll go into decision-making after that on both agendas, so recess. All right, we are convening a hearing of the Joint Committees on Energy and Environmental Protection and Agriculture and Food Systems, Tuesday, March 14th, 10:30 a.m. in Conference Room 325. We have one bill on the agenda today, Senate Bill 817, relating to state enterprise zones. And first up to testify is Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture. The department stands in support with our written testimony, noting that value-added production is certainly a good addition to an enterprise zone. The comment that we would like to make, though, and I'm going to read it. The department has concerns and requests the legislature first establish a fair balance between the competing goals for renewable energy and increasing local food self-sufficiency. Agricultural activities occupying the most productive agricultural lands, particularly here on Oahu and in the Kunia corridor, west of Kunia Road, will be even less able to compete and survive against the utility-scale solar energy industry if the latter is given further regulatory flexibility in seeking to occupy the same land used for agriculture production. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. DBET, Mark Ritchie.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, and members of both committees. Mark Ritchie for DBED. We'll stand on our written testimony in support and hear for any questions.
Thank you. And ADC in support.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairs, Vice Chairs. Jimmy Nakatani from the Agribusiness Corporation. We stand on strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hawaii Gas in support. Hawaii Forest Industry Association in support. Life of the Land.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. Our one major concern is that this bill should not be used to push high greenhouse gas emitting projects. And therefore, if it passes, we'd like to see an amendment that it has to be projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative in support. We Are One, Inc. in opposition. Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in opposition. Farm Bureau in support. Hawaii Clean Power Alliance in support. Huli PAC in opposition on Zoom, not present. Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. We are in strong opposition to this bill. The problem is that it would use generous tax incentives to incentivize biomass plants that are not only emitting too much carbon, but also raise rates for ratepayers. The Supreme Court, in a decision that came out yesterday, indicated that one biomass plant proposed on the Big Island would raise monthly rates by $10.79 a month for 30 years. It would also emit 8 million, I think it's 8 million metric tons of carbon. It would not be, I'm not sure about that, but we could check that number, but I do recall that it said it would not be carbon negative, if it was at all, for 25 years. And we don't have 25 years of time to put out excess carbon. So as Life of the Land said, if we're going to move this bill forward, which we oppose, then it should be amended in a way that makes clear that high emitting greenhouse gas plants from biomass should not be included. Biomass is worse than coal for climate, and it's also expensive. So for all those reasons, we strongly oppose this bill and urge the committee to defer it. Thank you very much. Available for questions.
Thank you. And Hawaii Food Industry Association in support. Tax Foundation of Hawaii on Zoom.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We have just general comments on the Enterprise Zone program generally. We'll stand on those and we'll be available for questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then Maui Chamber of Commerce in support. And then we have 10 additional individuals in opposition and 1 individual in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this? Members, questions? Chair Gates, any questions? Rep. Ward.
For the Director of Agriculture, please, just so I'm clear on what you said. Are you saying farmers can make more money by doing solar and other projects rather than actually growing food? Was that your point?
Yes, because solar is, it takes 24 months to grow pineapple. In 24 months, you can probably have generated enough energy for a year of pineapple
How big is
growing.
is it a multiple of 2, 3 times, 200%, 300%, or the numbers are not necessarily
I
that
will
big?
have to get back to you on that. Department of Energy has all that information.
Is Brian of the Farm Bureau here? He usually knows what's
Yeah,
in farmers' thinking. He knows what's in their head. Okay, the other, I had one other question. Oh, it's referring to value-added products. What are our top 3 value-added products? What's the name of them?
Probably coffee. Value added is anything that you take and transform into another state. So if you take a coffee bean and then you roast it, you've transformed it, you've added value to it. A macadamia nut, a raw nut, you've roasted it, now you've added value to it. So the top 3 would be probably, I'm going to say coffee, macadamia nuts, and at the top of the list, Representative, is seed corn that we add value to, but it's not, it's a food for animals. So I don't know if we can count that.
What about the cannabis
I
crops
don't-
that are growing?
Cannabis, whew, probably that'd be number 1, huh?
I think the bill excludes it, though. I think, or maybe it does, I don't know, but obviously that's coming
Yeah,
up for
but
discussion.
if you, apples and oranges, right? So solar energy can generate energy immediately. Basil, if you plant basil, you can have 3 harvests, in a month. So it's what you want to do with the farmland. The point we're making is if you put solar energy on the land, you take it out of agricultural production.
Are we doing anything with figs? Is a new value-added crop?
You need to talk to the Hawaii Tropical Fruit Growers because, yes, figs is probably their number 1 tree that they, besides avocado or mango, but they do the grafting for figs. And so I asked the industry, did you say figs?
Figs.
Yeah,
like-
so I asked the industry, why is it I don't see any local figs in the store? And my response was because every fig is sold. Every fig on the tree is pre-sold.
Wow.
So, yeah, a lot of people are growing figs.
Good news from the Department of Agriculture. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, learn something new every day. Any other questions, members? I have some quick questions. I'm not quite sure who to ask. Maybe DBET? So can you explain like the background of the Enterprise Zone program specifically and, what it was established to
Sure. It's a state-county
accomplish?
partnership, and it was established back in the early 90s. And the counties designate the enterprise zones, and they last for 20 years, and then they have to be redesignated, and then that's subject to the governor's approval. And in the legislation originally starting this program, certain industries were listed as being eligible to join the program. But you don't just have to be in that industry to belong to the program, you have to meet certain hiring goals. This is a job creation program to create jobs in economically challenged areas of the state. So it does 2 things. One, it creates jobs, and secondly, it tries to stimulate certain activities and certain business activities, meaning kind of industry sectors. So by far the largest number of companies, we have just under 200 companies in the program now, are in agriculture, value-added agriculture, manufacturing, and wholesaling. And then there's sort of some other miscellaneous categories in technology and stuff, but there aren't that many companies that sign up in these other sectors.
And just looking at the maps right now for the designated enterprise zones, and it's essentially, like almost anywhere in the state. So it seems like at base this is just a tax credit.
Yeah, if they meet the
for-
requirements of the program, and DBED's role is every year, companies digitally do an end-of-year report, submit it to DBED, and then we look at if they've met the hiring requirements, and also we look at their revenue and some other things. But if they meet the hiring requirements, then they get a certification letter saying you can take the tax credits this year. It's a special tax form, I think it's 756, state tax form, enterprise zones.
So what
and
are
if they
the hiring?
don't, and
what
if
are
they
the
don't do the
hiring
hiring, if they don't meet that, then we say you cannot take the tax credits this year. The program lasts 7 years, so you're still in the program. It just means this year you can't take the tax credits.
And what are the hiring requirements?
The hiring requirements, there's two things, not to get too complicated, but if you are a new company, meaning the zone was already drawn before you established your company, then the hiring requirements is increased by 10%, and then you hold that for the 7 years. And we don't do kind of fractions. And so if you have 10 people, you add 1. If you have 5 people, you add 1. 1 person, you add 1. And then you hold that for the 7 years. It gets a little bit more onerous if you were a company that was already there, and then the zone was designated sort of under you. And I think the philosophy behind that was you're already an existing company doing fine, and here now you get these credits. So they make it a little more onerous on the hiring requirements.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Life of the Land. I'm just kind of curious because this is expanding this tax credit to basically any renewable energy project. And it covers a lot of the areas of the state, but not all of them. Presumably, almost any area of Big Island could be designated an enterprise zone in the future, even if it's not now. But I'm looking at the map here on my computer, and it, for example, doesn't include the area where our most recent, largest solar plus storage projects are on Big Island, like in the Waikoloa area, not currently designated as an enterprise zone. I don't know. I'm just curious your thoughts, given that tax credits are meant to incentivize industries that need incentives, and with already having the RPS in law and renewable energy projects moving forward and RF3P at the under development, do you feel like there's a need for this specifically? Like what specifically would you think it would most apply to?
I think what it would do is lower the cost at the PUC for applications and offset it with an increase in taxes, basically. So it's a shift of accounting methods. And it's unclear at this point how many renewable energy companies would it be applicable to, or what the financial impacts would be.
Do you think it really would be a shift in, do you think it really would be much of a saving for ratepayers, though? Because it's only a 7-year program, and then they have to meet certain requirements. So just in terms of how it would be proposed in a contract, I'm not sure how that would be accounted for and worked in, especially because it's not guaranteed to be granted. You have to show each year you've met the eligibility requirements. So presumably any companies working on a contract would have to kind of factor that uncertainty in.
It would seem to me to touch the equity proceeding moving through the PUC, because the zones are more economically challenged areas, and therefore it would encourage a more greater number of wind and solar systems in rural communities that are already buckling under the growth of renewables in their community.
So you mean it would be counter to
Right.
some of the equity concerns we've heard about? Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, members? All right, if not, we'll recess for decision-making. All right, we are back. We're reconvening the 9:30 a.m. agenda, Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection for Decision Making. First up, we have Senate Bill 504 relating to environmental protection. This is the PFAS bill. So we're going to make a number of amendments to this, partly to match it up with what we had passed out of the House. We will add a definition for perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and we'll match that up to what is in HRS 328. We will match the definitions for cosmetics and personal care products to be the same as in HRS Chapter 321. We will add new definitions for ingredient and manufacturer, and we will match this up to federal law. This was per the testimony of the Personal Care Products, Personal Care Product Council, Personal Care Product Council, I think. We will add in a definition for food serviceware, which I have to work on exactly what that is, but that is intended to be outside of food packaging. That's already included. Food serviceware is like plates, knives, forks, etc. And then we will note in the committee report that the repeal of HRS 321-602 is not intended to occur until after the new, more stringent proposed law would take effect. I think that was in the effective date language, so now it's not in there, but the intention is to add that back in should the bill pass out of conference. And then we will defect the date to June 30th, 3000, and additional amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Okay. Is that one better? Sorry, trying to get it better. All right. Okay, here we go. Voting on SB 504, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Rep. Gates?
Aye.
And Rep. Kahaloa? Aye. Rep. Woodson?
Aye.
Rep. Ward?
It's a reservation.
Rep. Ward is with reservation. And Rep. Peruso is excused and will be for the rest of the agenda unless notated. And Chair, your measure is adopted.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 445 relating to pollution abatement. So we will just defect the date on this to June 30th, 3000. We are waiting on Department of Health to get back to us on the dollar amount for that appropriation. So we won't have any, we will wait for information for them. And that is all. So members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair voting on SB 445, SD2. Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair both vote aye. And noting the excused absence of Ms. Peruso. Members, any voting with reservations? Any noes? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 376, this is the seabed mining bill. Just technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style, and defect the date to June 30th, 3000, and move this forward. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 376, SD2, the Chair elects to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 973 relating to transportation. This creates the task force to look at EV rental car fleet. So we're going to make some amendments to this. We're going to change the chair of the task force to the DOT director, and then the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development Director or designee will just move to being a member. We will clarify that the Senate President will appoint a member from the rental car industry, and the House Speaker will appoint a member from the hotel industry. And then we will add Hawaiian Electric as a member on the task force. We'll add a sunset date for the task force, specifically of December 30th, 2027, and a deadline for the final report of 20 days prior to the convening of the regular session of 2028. And then we'll defect the date on the whole bill to June 30th, 3000. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 973, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any members voting with reservations? Any votes voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And Senate Bill 1154 relating to energy. This is the intergovernmental wheeling bill. We're going to make some amendments here. So in Section 2, we will actually strengthen the language a little here to clarify that within 30 days of the enactment of this bill, the Public Utilities Commission shall open a docket and set a procedural schedule to determine whether and by which rules a government agency may engage in wheeling of electricity produced at its own facilities from renewable sources. And then it will clarify the docket. We'll include the language suggested from IBEW to amend that language to from an or and a may to and shall. So it shall include, that docket shall include timely execution of workforce and community agreement with stakeholders and the federal funding provision. So from the IBEW testimony. And then technical amendments additionally for clarity, consistency, and style, and to effect the date to June 30th, 3000. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 1154, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then Senate Bill 459, relating to the hydrogen fueling subaccount, we will move this forward, defecting the date to June 30th, 3000. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 459, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. On Senate Bill 839 relating to renewable energy, we realize this bill needs further work, but to keep the discussion going, we're going to move this forward. We're going to add an additional provision that directs the PUC that says the PUC shall open a proceeding to investigate the cost of past project delays and determine whether and how the utilities should be held accountable for the increased costs to ratepayers due to those past delays. And then we'll defect the date to June 30th to 3000 and just continue the discussion on this. And additional technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any discussion?
Chair, I
Yes.
will be voting no on that for the fact that this surcharge breaks our promise to lower the cost of living, and the cost of electricity is really already sky high. And thirdly, I believe I heard over the phone that I was listening in, the Life of the Land said, look, everything is in place for this to be taken care of down the line. So it's not necessary, but if it does go through and it increases the cost of living, I think it breaks our word. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, members? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 839, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Rep. Ward voting no. Members, any members voting with reservations? Any other noes? Seeing none, Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And Senate Bill 691 relating to efficiency standards, we're going to actually defer decision-making on this till Thursday, March 16th at the end of the 9:30 a.m. agenda. to have some time to work on getting the language right on that. And so moving on to Senate Bill 422, this is the housekeeping amendment for the Environmental Advisory Council. We're going to move this forward as is. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the votes.
Voting on SB 422, Chair elects to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then last bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 419 relating to carbon sequestration. We will note in the committee report the recommended amount for the appropriation is $1 million. And then we will defect the date to June 30th, 3000 and move this forward. Members, any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Voting on SB 419, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And this hearing is adjourned. All right, we are reconvening the joint committees on energy and environmental protection and Committee on Agriculture and Food Systems, 10:30 a.m. agenda for decision-making. We have one bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 817, relating to state enterprise zones. So we're going to move this forward with a defective date of June 30th, 3000, and we're just going to add some language in there that for renewable energy projects, this enterprise zone tax credit would apply to renewable energy projects that can demonstrate greenhouse gas emissions substantially lower than those of fossil fuel. And we'll move this forward for further discussion. Members, any discussion? All right, if not, taking the vote, Vice Chair, take the vote for energy for EEP, please.
Sure. Voting on SB 817, Chair elects to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. For the Committee on Agriculture and Food Systems, Chair's recommendation is to follow EEP. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Mahalo, Chair. Voting on SB 817, recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Cochran? Aye. Representative Lowen?
Aye.
Representative Peruso, excused. Representative Woodson?
Aye.
Representative Ward?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
All right, we are adjourned.